We're going to kind of wrap up this message series we've been basically just calling Community Living Life Together. We've talked about the importance of sharing life. We talked about redwoods last week and how they just intertwine their root system, and that makes them strong. And so the importance of sharing life and life groups, and at least home groups, is a way that we're trying to do that alongside Sunday school and Wednesday night. And so if that's something you feel like, man, I just need a little bit more time in the Word, I need a little bit more time in fellowship, that's something that plug in to something like that. But what I'm going to talk about today is the idea of come and see, go and tell. Because you read through the Gospels, that's ultimately what Jesus is doing. That's what He's doing in the life of the disciples. He's saying, come and see me. Come and watch me. Come and experience me. Come and see all that I'm doing, all that I'm teaching, and then with that information, with that wisdom, with that knowledge, I want you to then go and tell, go and show all that I'm doing. And that's ultimately all He's asking us to do. He wants us to see church as a place where we come and we have a base camp and we have the pep rally and we have these times where we're encouraged, we're challenged, and we come up and then we go out because we spend most of our time where? We spend most of our time out there. We spend most of our time there, and so this is a place for us to gain perspective, to gain a little bit of wisdom. And I love what Ryan prayed about is sometimes we just need to pray for common sense. Anybody with me? Okay? Common sense. That's where it begins. So if you're a note taker and you are looking for where to begin, you're looking at the clock and you're saying this is a lot. Okay? We're going to get through it. The reason why I try to wrap up at 12, this is just for you to know, is because I love and respect those people over there. Okay? And so that's what we're not putting God on a time schedule. I believe that everybody's time is valuable. And so with that, we're going to work through this as quickly as we can. So if you're taking notes, God calls each believer into ministry. Now, I don't know if this is counter to how you were raised and what you thought, because to me that was the phrase when God called me at the age of 15 into ministry, right? He asked me, hey, I want you to preach. And I said, okay, after struggling with that. But to me, into ministry isn't just exclusive to this and what I'm doing. It's not that. In fact, Ms. Carol added something in the bulletin today that I want you to kind of pay attention to. You have the staff and get to know kind of what we do, who we are. But there's another note in there, and I'll probably mess this up too, is that every member is a minister, I think is how it goes. And so all of us are called to do something and to be the church where we live. And so we don't have a way out. Just because God didn't say, hey, I want you to do this and I want you to do this for a living, He's called each and every one of us. How do we know that? 1 Peter 2:9, among other passages. You are royal priests, a holy nation, God's very own possession. As a result, so since He defines us that way, since He says, okay, you are a priest, there's no position, there's no person more important than the other. You are that. As a result, you can show others what? The goodness of God. Because you have been saved, because you have been brought into Him, for He called you out of the darkness into His wonderful light. We're in football season, right? And so if you don't have to watch football to understand where I'm going with this, is there's a quarterback, and they typically get all the attention, they get all the blame, they get all the glory, however that game goes, but they also get all the money, okay? So there's a reason that they need to be criticized and all that, but if you just send the quarterback on the field, what's going to happen to him without the line, without the receivers, without the running back? What's going to happen? That's common sense, right? We know. But also, if you send everybody out there with the quarterback and they don't do anything, what happens to that quarterback? Okay? Been there? Everybody has a job. Everybody has an assignment. Everybody has something to do. And it's not just about the people who are on the field that is just on the team, right? It's also the people who are waiting their turn. Not praying for somebody to get hurt on the field so they can get in, right? But they're waiting for them to get exhausted so they can have their turn. And it's waiting my turn. It's understanding that sometimes I'm called to cheer. Sometimes I'm called, okay, I've had an experience, I can coach. And sometimes it's just about, I want to be a fan. I want to sport the gear. I want to invest in this. I want to make this as great as it can be. And so when you think about a football team, you think about how that works in a successful program, it's not just about one person. It's not just even about a handful of people. There's so many people, so many factors that go into it. We each have a voice and a story, and a testimony to share. You see, people can debate hearsay testimonies. What I mean by that is you can say, well, so-and-so said this about God. He did this in so-and-so's life. But no one can debate what God has done in your life. No one can debate your story because it's your story and you're living out before them. So everyone, if you profess to be a believer, you are a minister of the gospel. So moving on our notes, why does God then invite us to serve? It's a question that I kind of think through often is, why wouldn't God just fix it, right? I mean, why would, I don't know where you are theologically, I'm a free will guy, why wouldn't God just, all right, this is not working. Can we just kind of pull it? Let me make the choices for you, right? Let me just fix everything for you. Let me remove those desires. Let me remove those obstacles. Let me remove those temptations. Let's just make life easy. You know where that's going to happen? It's not going to happen here. And so let me just kind of be frank with you. It's not going to happen here. There's always going to be temptations, always going to be trials, always going to be struggles. There's always going to be selfish people, not just out there, but there's going to be in the church with agenda. It's going to, and why is that? It's because people make up the church, and we are imperfect. We are messed up. We're not okay all the time. And so we're going to have all of that. There's hypocrites sitting next to you. If you don't know who they are, maybe it's you, all right? So are we okay with that? Are we okay with that? Can we just own it for just a second? All right. So why does God invite us to serve? If He could just fix it. He said, I believe that we are supposed to strive to be holy. So don't let me misunderstand what I'm saying here. We are called to be holy. But earthly perfection is not attainable. It's not realistic. And so, to me, what makes the gospel so real and relevant is, for me, a messed up person and a broken person and an unbalanced person at times, to have joy in the midst of struggle, to have a smile on my face in the midst of life falling apart, is to be faithful to God even when, among others, He doesn't seem to be being faithful to me. It's being steady in the midst of the storm. It's trusting that He's in control. I believe that's why He's allowing us, at least for one reason. But if you're taking notes, or at least let's get to my passage first, Romans 12, 1 and 2. It says, therefore, I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing, where does it begin? In our minds. It's how we think, how we process things, how we see the world, and how we see people. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, His good, pleasing, and perfect will. So going back and answering our question, why does God invite us to serve? If you're taking notes here, it is to share in what He's doing now. If you're like me, there's times where I open up the Bible and I read all these amazing stories that God split the Red Sea and He did all these amazing things. He brought arms forth and limbs. He caused them to grow. I mean, He did all these amazing things. He brought Lazarus back from the dead. I mean, He did these cool things. But in the midst of that, we go and go, when is God going to do something like that now? When is God going to, can we just, I know it's not as extreme in our eyes, but do you understand that we just experienced 2 miracles this morning? Do we get that? 2 miracles took place for 2 individuals to say, you know what, I need God in my life. Yes, they've been around good environments and we provided for them, but it was their choice, and somehow something happens in their hearts that we feel a need for that, and we make that choice in the midst of all the stuff that would be easier. We choose Him. And they chose to do that, and they chose to testify to you today. That is a miracle. Do you realize that there's people in the room that have had cancer that have been healed from cancer? Is that a miracle? I could have them stand up, but I know I'd get in trouble with them. But also, the miracle sometimes isn't being healed here. The miracle sometimes is we're made whole there. Because there's some of you who have loved ones and you prayed for them. We prayed for them right here. I can take you to the spot. We prayed for God to heal them. And He didn't heal them in this life, but He's with them and they're completely whole now. Amen? Is that not a miracle? You see, what I'm saying is we're looking at all these stories, and if we're not careful, we look at all these stories in the Bible and we say, why isn't God doing this now? And we're moved by that. We're stirred by that. We're encouraged by that. But understand, He's wanting us to serve now. He's wanting us to serve here. He's wanting us to be His hands and feet because He wants new stories to be written here. He is writing a story in your life and through your life right now. It may not be on the pages of Scripture. It may not be on the pages of Facebook or whatever, but you know what? He's writing a story in your life, and who's reading your story? Your children are reading your story. Your spouse is reading your story. Your coworkers are reading your story. Your neighbors are reading your story. If you're in athletics, those guys and those gals in the locker room, they're reading your story. Teachers, your students are reading your story. Classmates are reading our story. People around us, the people that you're sharing the pew with, they're reading your story. He's asking us to serve because He wants to do something in us and through us. Serving isn't something we do. A servant is who we're called to be. We've got to change our perspective. You see, I'm not a servant just because in just a moment I checked something and I said I'm going to do something. That doesn't make you a servant. A servant is someone that serves from the heart. A servant is someone who doesn't do it for attention, at least for you. It's all about giving God His glory. What if God is asking us to be an answer to a current prayer that someone's praying? Someone is praying, God, send someone in my life because I'm so lonely. God, I just need to see someone who would just be encouraging. I need to see someone who's going to do life the right way. I'm praying that someone would step in my life and be something different. What if there's people out there praying and God is leading us to just get involved in something so that we can be an encouragement, we can be an instrument that transforms their life. So, how do we serve the Little C Church and the Big C Church? What does that look like? See, I believe that God calls us to serve the Big C Church, to do things that don't necessarily impact New Hope Church, and that's important for us, that we're just partnering with someone else who's already doing it, okay? Like God Tell and Glory Game. We want to come alongside ministries like that and say it's not about New Hope Church. It's about the kingdom. But there's also times that we've got to strengthen the local church and we have to serve here. And so understanding the church does not exist for us, that we exist for the world. So how do we do it? Let's get down to it, because these next 3 points are a little bit challenging, especially number 2. So first of all, with our time. Serving is relative to the season you're in. And so I want to take a little bit of guilt. It may be false for you a little bit. If you have a couple of toddlers around the house, how much free time do you really have? If you're a grandparent and your kids have small kids and they live close to you, or they just need help babysitting and you're getting close to retirement, maybe you have free time, how much free time do you have? If you are someone and now your parents are elderly and they need you checking in on them because they live locally and they need you there in their life right now a little bit more than they used to, how much free time do you have? Are we dealing with it yet? Are we there? If you're facing some health issues and it's debilitating, how much really free time and energy do you have? So I say all that to say there are seasons in our life, and you know who knows that? More than your pastor knows it, God knows it. And so what I don't want to happen today is we talk about we need to give of our time, we need to give of what He's given. What I'm talking about and what I think God is kind of leading is it's about what you have. The time that you have, are you given a portion of that to ministering to people? How do we know that? How do we know if we have time? I think we need to create some margin. So here's a couple of thoughts I had. If you're too busy to say yes to what God presents to you, then you need to begin to say no to something you're doing. If God is leading you to do something for Him that's honoring to Him, but you can't say yes because you've said yes to too many things and too many people, I think it's time for us to spend a little bit of time this week to pray, okay, if that's the yes I'm supposed to say yes to, then what in my life do I need to right now say no to so I can have margin to do that? There's a lady I visited recently in the nursing home. She just turned 101 years old. She's sitting there. She still remembers her family. She's walking me through all of her pictures of her family. And one thing she said was pretty cool. She pointed to this picture, and it basically just had faith, hope, and love. And I said, well, that's pretty cool. You know, we're talking about it. She goes, you know, I can't do a whole lot. So every day I pray that picture. I pray that the people come into my room, see that I have faith, hope, and love. And I was like, man, that is so amazing that she gets it. She doesn't have a lot of time. She doesn't have a lot of reasons. She's 101. So not just a lot of time in the day, but a lot of time left. But she understands that, okay, in my day, in my time, in my opportunities, this is all I have. I am stuck here. So where can God use me here? Where am I stuck? What season am I in? What time can I give to Him? And then secondly, with our treasure. This is the part. I hope that this isn't your first time at church in a long time, and you told somebody who invited you to church that all they ever preach about is money. I'm sorry today, okay? If this is your first day back to church in a while, you know. But let me just say, Jesus spent more time talking about money than any other issue. And I promise you, I don't talk a whole lot about it, but I believe it's a way for us. And it's not just about benefiting, okay, God, because He owns the cattle on 1,000 hills. Sometimes we need to let go of the cattle. That's what this is about. And so somebody has to let go of. So why is that important? What does that look like? I believe that sharing a portion of what God has given us is simply about trust. So I don't know what your giving looks like. I don't check those things. I don't want to know those things, because when I talk about these things on occasion, I want to look at everybody in the eye without seeing dollar signs on your forehead. But for me, every time I put that check in that offering plate, it reminds me, one, that it's not all mine. And two, what I let go of, I'm trusting that He's going to use the rest of it to cover everything else that He's asking me to do. It's a trust issue. So here's a quick challenge. If you're here today and you give to the church and you sacrifice, I say applaud. I say continue to be faithful. But if you're one of those, you said, I just budget, I just can't, 3-month challenge. So do something for me. Just begin to pray. If 0 is your percentage, then go up to 1. All right? Go up to 1% and say, I'm gonna give this for 3 months. I'm gonna give this $10, this $5. I'm gonna tell you, when you give to God and you say, God, this is yours, I promise you, He is gonna stretch what you have left. He says in His Scripture, it's the only thing He says to do that He says, test me. It's almost like He stands up there and He says, try me. Come on, try me. Come on. All right, so we're done talking about money, right? Next, our talents. Our talents. 1 Peter 4:10, each of you should use whatever gift you have received to serve others as faithful stewards of God's grace in its various forms. So, the beauty of the church is that everyone is necessary. Everyone is necessary. And so, if we're going to give you a challenge, then I believe there needs to be something to do about it. You're not going to be judged tomorrow morning for not doing anything today. But what I feel like is there's people that have been I want to serve. I think we understand the importance of serving. If you're already serving, then hey, we celebrate that. If you've already checked some of this stuff out, you've turned it in at a next step luncheon or at some point, and you're just waiting for that timing to get plugged in, okay, we're coming for you, okay? But what I want to do really quickly, okay, is kind of just point out a couple of these and allow you, if you feel like, okay, God is leading me to plug in somewhere, then all you're simply going to do is just check it. There's a couple of baskets on the way out. You kind of just drop it off, and we're going to follow up with you. There's a couple of these I want to highlight. First of all, people I trust tell me I can sing. Don't make Jennifer be Simon Cowell to you. Don't put her in that awkward position of saying, this is not the place for you. Are we clear? If you don't like kids, they drive you up the wall. You don't go to Chick-fil-A at certain hours because they're there. Don't sign up for children's ministry in the nursery because you know what? Kids are over there. And if you don't like them, we don't want you over there. Were you together? Guys, there's so many things in here. I want you to spend some time just praying about, is God leading me to get involved in something? Is He leading me to say, you know what, I want to get involved in this? Women's ministry and men's ministry, those are ministries we've had in the past that I would love for us to be able to provide that again for just fellowship, accountability. That's something you say, I want to be part of something like that. Let me take you through a quick progression. Because I believe every person counts. And as you think about what grabs your heart this morning, what along in there that you say, this grabs my heart. This is something I want to get plugged into on some level. Billy Graham made a huge impact on the world, but it wasn't just about him. In fact, there's a quote before I get into this progression, is what he said. He said, I am only one in a chain of men and women God has raised up through the centuries to build Christ's church and to take the gospel everywhere. We're just one link in the chain. But at some point, we have to link up to the chain. Amen? You don't mean a whole lot to the chain if you're over here by yourself. Okay? So, let's go through this progression of how we got Billy Graham in his ministry. A Sunday school teacher named Edward Kimball won a shoe clerk to Jesus in D.L. Moody. D.L. Moody traveled to England and awakened the heart of a young pastor by the name of F.B. Meyer. F.B. Meyer became one of the great Bible expositors, came to the U.S. and preached on college campuses and was used to convert a student to Christ named Wilbur Chapman. Wilbur Chapman attended one of Moody's meetings in Chicago and became D.L. Moody's co-worker. Wilbur Chapman employed an ex-baseball player as his assistant. His name was Billy Sunday. Billy Sunday became a great evangelist and preached in Charlotte, North Carolina, organized by the Billy Sunday Layman's Evangelistic Club, renamed, thankfully, Christian Business Men's Committee. All right, they didn't have great names back then, maybe. But the CBMC invited an evangelist to Charlotte. His name was Mordecai Ham. Mordecai Ham preached in a tent meeting. Anybody remember those? Preached in a tent meeting where Billy Graham was saved. It all started with what? A Sunday school teacher and a shoe salesman. Now, there are so many links like this. You have your own link. Just like I have my own link that I can point back to people. And it's cool to kind of trace that back. What we're giving you an opportunity today is to be part of something. There's a lot of churches that do amazing things. New Hope is nothing special. It's not the most important church. But if this is where you call home, if it's home, as a pastor, all I'm compelling you to do and trying to challenge you to do is at some point pick up something. Pick up a broom. Pick up something and contribute to the family and the community. What does God give you to do? And are you willing to be courageous enough to say, I'll do it. I'll do it. Will you bow your heads with me? God, I thank you so much for the opportunity to come and talk about a challenging topic today. It's never comfortable making some people uncomfortable. But today I believe that's what you wanted from us. There are times in our life where you need to stretch us a little bit. There are times in our life where we need to evaluate how we're spending our time, how we're spending our finances, and how we're using the talents you've given us. God, I pray for each person today that you would lead them, guide them. If they need to take these papers home, a little bit of time in them, bring them back next week, that's fine. But if we want to do something with the life we have.